I have a joke for you. Gamer journalist. We need to talk. You saw the title, right? Don't trust IGN. And maybe, don't trust all journalists? Yeah, I know. It's a pretty spicy take. Might sound like I'm just trying to be edgy, or maybe I've gone off the deep end, but seriously, stick with me for a few minutes, because this isn't just about game reviews, it's about how we get information online and why that's super important, especially for you guys. Hey everyone, Just a Gamer back online. And yeah, we're diving into a topic that gets a lot of heat online, especially in gaming communities. The whole idea of gaming journalism, big sites like IGN, GameSpot, Kotaku, Polygon, and whether or not you can or should trust what they say. Look, when I was first getting into gaming, these sites were gospel. IGN gave it a 9, must be a masterpiece. GameSpot had a negative review, probably skip it. They felt like the experts, the gatekeepers, but over time, especially as I spent more and more time actually playing games, watching streamers, reading forums, talking to other players, something started to feel off. My experience didn't always match the review score. The expert opinions sometimes felt disconnected from the community. And then you start seeing the other stuff online, right? People criticizing these sites, calling them out for bias, for clickbait, for not understanding the games they're reviewing, or sometimes even worse things. So it makes sense that a lot of people, maybe you guys, feel like maybe you can't just blindly trust what they say, and honestly, I'm leaning towards agreeing with that, but let's break down why. Let's start with IGN, since they're the big name everyone knows. What are they famous for? Reviews, those big, bold review scores out of 10, a 7.8, a 9.0, a perfect 10 out of 10, and for years that number felt so important, like the definitive word on whether a game was good or bad. But here's the thing, what is a 7.8 really? Is it just a feeling? Is there a strict rubric? Does everyone on the team agree? And how many hours did they actually play the game before slapping that number on it? Did they finish it? Did they explore the end game? We've seen games where the score feels completely disconnected from the written review. Or worse, infamous examples like, well, you know, the too much water meme, right? A perfect example where a review felt like it focused on the weirdest, most insignificant detail to justify a score, completely missing the point of the game for a lot of players. And it's not just about weird nitpicks, it's about potential bias. Now, I'm not saying everyone at IGN is secretly evil or paid off. Maybe some people online are saying that, and we'll get to the all-journalist part. But think about the system. These big sites rely on access. They need early review copies. They need interviews with developers. They need invitations to preview events. If they're super harsh, burn bridges with a major publisher, does that make it harder to get access for the next big game from that publisher? It's a potential conflict of interest that's just built into the system. And what about advertising? These massive websites need to make money. A huge chunk of that comes from ads, often from the same companies whose games they are reviewing. Now, legally and ethically, there are supposed to be walls between the editorial side, the reviews, and the business side, the ads. But even subconsciously, is there pressure? Do you want to trash the game that the main banner ad on your homepage is promoting? It's a sticky situation. So, while IGN is a big target, the feeling of distrust often extends further. The title said all journalists, which okay, is definitely an overstatement, and I'll nuance that in a bit. But let's talk about why people feel that way about media covering online culture, and especially gaming. A common criticism is a lack of genuine understanding or expertise. You see this when traditional news outlets try to cover online trends, memes, or gaming controversies. They often get it wrong. They misunderstand the context. They sensationalize things. They use outdated slang or just completely miss the point because they aren't immersed in the culture like we are. And it's not just about getting memes wrong, it's about the games themselves. Does a journalist who reviews a game for a living truly understand the nuance of a complex multiplayer meta after playing for 20 hours for a review, compared to someone in the community who's put in hundreds or thousands of hours? Probably not. Their perspective is different. And sometimes that different perspective feels uninformed. Then there's the clickbait problem. The online media landscape is driven by clicks. Headlines designed to shock, provoke, or pique your curiosity just enough to make you click. Is popular game actually problematic? The real reason? Online personality? Did thing? Sometimes the article delivers, sometimes it's just empty calories, designed purely for engagement. And this applies to journalism throughout the internet, not just gaming. It feels like a lot of online reporting is less about informing you and more about getting you to interact so they can show you ads, chasing trends, rehashing the same news, sometimes even publishing stories that aren't fully fact-checked because they want to be first. When you see that happening over and over, it's understandable to start feeling skeptical of anyone claiming to be an authority or a source of truth online, including people with journalist in their bio. This skepticism resonates so much with people our age because we grew up online. We've seen how quickly narratives can form, change, or be manipulated. We've seen how information spreads, both good and bad. We're probably more media literate in some ways than generations before us, just because we're constantly bombarded and have to filter so much. We also value authenticity. We connect with independent creators, streamers, YouTubers, people on TikTok, because they often feel real. They share their genuine opinions, their struggles, their excitement. Even if they're building a brand, there's a directness that sometimes feels missing from large corporate media outlets. When a review from a big site clashes wildly with the user reviews on Steam, or the Metacritic score from players, or what your favorite streamer is saying, or just your own experience, who are you going to believe? You're probably going to trust the people who seem to be experiencing the thing the way you are, or who don't seem to have a big corporation behind them. So that feeling of I can't just trust what IGN says, or maybe these big media sites don't really get it, it's valid. It comes from seeing inconsistencies, potential conflicts of interest, and a perceived lack of understanding in certain areas. Okay, deep breath again, because remember how I said all journalists was an overstatement? It is. It's super important not to swing too far the other way and just dismiss everyone who works for a media outlet. There are incredibly smart, dedicated, ethical journalists out there, people who do care about accuracy, who do understand the subjects they cover, who do try to hold power accountable, which is the core job of journalism, even if we're talking about game publishers or tech companies. Sometimes these bigger sites do break important stories. They have resources independent creators don't. They can do deep investigations. They can provide a platform for voices that might not otherwise be heard. Dismissing everything just because it comes from a big name isn't smart either. That's just trading one type of blind trust for another. The point isn't that every single person at IGN or every single journalist is somehow malicious or clueless. The point is that the system they operate in has potential flaws, conflicts, and pressures that can influence the final product. Whether that's a review score, a news headline, or an article. So, if you can't just trust blindly, whether it's a big gaming site or some random person on Twitter, definitely don't blindly trust random people on Twitter. What do? This is the important part. You become a critical consumer of information. That sounds fancy, but it just means think for yourself. Don't take anyone's word as the absolute final truth without questioning it a little. When you see a review score, ask yourself, why is it that score? What does the written review say? Does it match? Who wrote it? Do they usually like these kinds of games? When you see a headline, especially a crazy one, ask yourself, is this just clickbait? Is this site known for sensationalizing things? Can I find this information reported anywhere else? Look for multiple sources. Don't just read one review. Check out a few different reviews from different sites, big and small. Watch some gameplay videos. Seeing the game in action is often way more useful than reading about it. Look at user reviews on platforms like Steam, Metacritic, the user score, or forums like Reddit. What are actual players saying after spending dozens or hundreds of hours? Listen to independent creators you trust. But even then, remember they have biases too. Maybe they're huge fans of a certain franchise, or they dislike a developer because of past issues. No one is perfectly neutral. And probably the most important thing, if you're really curious about something and you can, try it yourself. Watch some spoiler-free gameplay, try a demo, or if you buy the game, play it and form your own opinion. Your experience is valid. It doesn't matter if IGN gave it a 6 and you think it's a 9. Your enjoyment is what matters for you. So, yeah, don't trust IGN, or maybe better phrased, don't blindly trust any single source for information, especially online. Be skeptical, be critical, get your info from multiple places. Understand that everyone has a perspective, and sometimes the system they work in shapes that perspective in ways you need to be aware of. The power is actually with you. The power to decide who to listen to, the power to dig deeper, the power to think for yourself. What do you guys think? Do you trust big gaming sites? Who are your go-to sources for reviews and news? Let me know in the comments below. If you found this helpful or even just got you thinking, please hit that like button. Subscribe if you want to see more discussions like this. Stay critical, stay curious, and keep gaming. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.